Well, it's my great pleasure to introduce returning guest Daniel Orlandi to the show. Daniel, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm real good. Thanks for coming back on the show. Today we're going to be talking Ford versus Ferrari. Ford versus Ferrari, I should say. Critics have it at 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. The audience have it at 98%, which sounds a bit more like it. Directed by James Mangold. The filmography of Daniel Orlandi, who was a costume designer for this, is Logan, Frost Nixon, Saving Mr. Banks, amongst many others. Daniel, wow, what a film to be involved with for a start. And a terrific film. I've seen it twice in the space of 2 days. Could you tell us a little bit how you got involved with the film?
Well, I had done Logan with Jim Mangold. So when this came about, I got a call saying, I'm doing this movie about the Le Mans race. And I'm like, oh, I don't know anything about cars. But then I read the script and it sort of made me cry. It was such a beautiful script that I thought, oh yes, I definitely want to do it.
That's fascinating because I didn't know. I knew a little bit about the story, but I think I'll try and save it for people that haven't seen the film. I perhaps won't go into too many spoilers about it, but you obviously didn't know too much about the story to begin with. But then, do you have to now go in and research racing drivers, what Ken Miles was wearing?
Oh, absolutely. We did a lot of research about, the racing uniforms and all of the crew jackets. And we talked to a who was on the Shelby team at Le Mans. And he was only 17 when he did it, and he lives in Los Angeles, so he was very helpful. He lent us his shirt that we measured and copied to get the embroidery exactly right. It was a big undertaking.
Wow. Because I was going to ask how much creativity you get on a film like this when you have archival photos and actual real life people wearing these clothes. Are you allowed to kind of then take that and go, right, I'm just going to put a little spin on this to make it a bit more telegenic, or do you have to stay very true to what they wore?
Well, you try. It's weird. I've done so many movies about real people. So many. I would say like 75% of the movies I've done are about real people. Here's the thing. You like to be as truthful as possible, but you also have to make the actor feel like that character. They're not really doing an impersonation. They're inhabiting that character, and it may not be exactly like. I could give you an example of, I did this movie called The Blind Side, where Sandra Bullock played this real woman, and she wanted exactly the clothes of the woman. And when we tried them on in the first fitting, the colors were too bright and the patterns were too bold. So we took all the color out of the costumes and all the pattern, and then all of a sudden the character worked.
Right. Okay.
So you're really making the actor feel like the character, and telling the story. You also have to be truthful to what the story is. So we recreated the driving uniforms, and the crew jackets and the crew shirts, and we did those as exactly as possible. Although we had to make them a bit more safe than they were at the time, because they didn't have Nomex. They were sort of flame retardant.
Right. And so they were flame retardant, or they weren't flame retardant?
They weren't back then.
Back then, right, yeah.
Yeah, so we had to make the ones that the stunt drivers, they had to be safe.
Right, interesting. But it's weird. They still look beautiful. So they must have looked beautiful back then as well. I mean, like they're this kind of ivory white with the handwriting embroidery of Ken Miles on the breast. I even like the banded collars that they have around. I mean, I guess this is just driving suits. It's just every day, not reinventing the wheel, but they still looked oddly classic and very, very iconic. I really loved watching them.
Well, it's that 60s look, to me, still looks fresh.
Yeah. And is this
you look...
Sorry, Daniel, I'll cut you off.
It's that 60s look. You look at pictures of Steve McQueen in the 60s, and he could walk down the street today, and you would just say, what a great looking guy. What a great looking outfit.
And do you enjoy returning to this decade? Is it a decade that you like visiting, recreating, and spending some time in?
it was really fun to do. I worked really closely with the production designer, and we have the three races. We have California at the beginning, and we gave them, and then we had Daytona in Florida, and then we had Le Mans, and we gave them three distinct color palettes for all the extras.
Yeah.
And it was really fun to do.
To give
It was
them
really fun to do.
To give them an identity.
An identity. We had
yeah.
the sun bleached colors of California for the first race, and then Daytona is a bit more East Coast and a little bit more redneck, and we had cowboy hats and cowboy boots and plaid shirt, and then Le Mans, which is northern France, which sort of was almost a throwback to the 50s. You know, it wasn't swinging Paris or London, even though it was 67. It was much more conservative.
I was going to ask also, you had the American team, the Ford team.
Yes.
And then you had the Ferrari team, Enzo Ferrari. And so Remo Girone, who played Enzo Ferrari, and you had Josh Lucas, who played Theo. Did you have to do some, in your mind, did you have to draw a line in the sand between American suits and Italian suits? And how did you approach that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we gave them, you know, my dad was in the car business, and he, in the 60s, and he was like, he looked at someone and said, that's a sharp dressed man. And we tried to give the Ford execs almost like a football team. They were sort of gray and a little shiny suits and the skinny ties. And then the Ferrari team is a bit more, the Ferrari are a bit more old world. And so those were warmer, richer colors. The ties were a little wider, cream colored shirts, not that sort of white and blue. So we gave the steel Ford and then the handmade look of the Ferrari, because even the Ferrari factory, we made the Ferrari factory uniforms, and they were sort of, in our research, they're sort of like old army coveralls.
Interesting.
And that sort of rich brown color with the red. So we really did give them a completely distinctive look. And even, you know, watching the movie, the composer gave them the score changes when we go from the Ferrari people to the Ford people. And then Shelby and his crew, they're sort of this ragtag bunch, you know, sort of outsiders.
Yeah, they kind of got the bomber jackets and the shell suits.
It was great. You know, and then Matt Damon as Carroll Shelby, we really tried to give him that sort of guy, you know, kind of a little bit of a peacock.
Yes.
But a guy. You know, and of course.
Sorry,
with his houndstooth sport coat and his tight black pants, because he straddles both worlds. You know, he goes into the Ford with his sort of cowboy hat, and you know, because he was Texan, but we really, you know, made him the California guy.
I think he had a great swagger throughout the film. I think the glasses.
He's one of my favorite actors. I was very happy to work with him because I've so admired him as an actor, because I always think he disappears into his roles.